So we got a schedule impact of 3 months. The general conditions impact in terms of time variable costs in design and construction was $750,000. Let's just take prefabrication. I think a lot of people in the audience, I think a lot of people have seen prefabrication increase. The opportunity for prefabrication has been increasing. So the question is, what does BIM do that makes it more possible? How much does BIM invite more prefabrication, and we move something from the field fab to shop fabrication? How much do we save? One subcontractor just tells me they save 60%. If you take something in the field, you move it to the shop where it's a safe environment, it's a dry environment, it's not windy, we've got lifts overhead, we've got good equipment, we've got fans pulling off the fumes from the welding, we save 60 cents on the dollar. Now, we certainly understand that if you move something into a shop, you've got to have a shop, and so I think we're in a period of transformation where there may be multiple trades that can share a shop. There may be a shop that gets specifically rented or constructed. But let's take a look at what the research is telling us about prefabrication. This is that same project studied by Stanford University, the Camino Medical Group and that team. They saw 20 to 30% improvement in labor savings. So I don't think that, by my analysis of this, it's all having to do with prefabrication, but they are saying it's this lean BIM way of working. So let's leave it there. The MEP subcontractors might, if you add up that portion of the project, that might be 30 to 40% of the project. That could be 75 to 100 million of this project. And if you save 20 to 30% of the labor on that, that's a reference point. There's a beautiful story on a slide deck's available online. It's actually encouraging BIM to be mandatory because they see the impact in this prefabrication space. One local contractor swears this is the biggest number that's out there. In terms of harvesting the benefits of BIM, prefab is the biggest one. You see different people with different emphases. This Queen Elizabeth study in the UK, done by Eric, just some great visuals, imagining a new way of working. Safe, working at chest level instead of working over your head on a ladder, injuries, back, falls, fumes. One of the costs of this is we're going to have to make sure that we don't forget the cost of the shipping. But in this case, that the prefabrication, they hand it over 6 months early. They expect, but this actually doesn't have a particular reference point in terms of direct cost savings. Another one. This is the MEP trade pricing. This is HVAC. Giving BIM fabrication software the credit for reducing the cost of the job by 8%. So it would be great if we could get 8% of the 40% of the project that is represented by the MEP trades. So let's go over what you calculate on this project. Your opportunity to do prefabrication has increased every year since your two-dimensional days?
Absolutely, yeah. Prefab is a big target right now. I feel like a lot of the, especially the larger subcontractors. Again, we're in the Boston, Cambridge market. It's a real hot spot to be in right now.
Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it and expanding it. Absolutely, yeah.
So they're increasing the size of their shops, or?
Oh yeah, a couple of subcontractors that we work with regularly have gone. I know one of them went from a 15,000 foot plant to 25 to 40,000 square foot prefab plant in the last 3 years.
From 15 to 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, they're sold. But and we are too. I mean, from what we get from them, it's all the points you made before. They're working indoors. It's safer. It's healthier. There's less waste. They get a full 8 hours out of their guys every day instead of less on a job site. So
yeah.
it's a great thing for them, and it's again more predictable work, and it's better for everybody.
So if we look at the migration, maturing from the two-dimensional environment to an all-in BIM environment, and we see work that was done in the field and it's moved to the shop, what is that amount of work that can be moved to the shop, and what is the efficiency that you would expect in this movement? What would be the savings?
Right, so of the project cost, MEPs are generally around 40%, right?
So 40% of 250 is 100 million.
Right.
And so that's MEP.
Right. Which is primarily, which is where a lot of the prefab is happening.
Yes.
Not all of it, but that's where most of it is.
And so how much of that is labor?
So probably half of that's labor?
50%.
50%.
So $50 million will be spent in the old environment on mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, labor, trade labor. And how much of that work can you move in from the old environment to the new environment? How much of that work can be moved into the shop?
So the number that we just saw was right around 40%.
Of the 50 million, 40% can go to the shop. So that's $20 million in labor in the old environment that would be done in the field is now in the shop. And what would be the savings? What improvement in efficiency would stem from that migration to the shop?
So probably 25% of that. So is that $4 million?
1/4 of that would be $5 million.
Where do I sign? Sounds good.
And what kind of efficiency would you enjoy? Or is that the same question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're enjoying a 25% improvement in labor efficiency. So there are savings of $5 million.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So we've increased our confidence in the geometry. We've gotten it to be more exact. We figured out the clash problems. Now we're ready to move stuff into the field. Is any other benefits of moving this into the shop that are sort of indirect, or that maybe we don't put in the calculation?
Like we talked about, I mean, just health and safety alone, fewer injuries. So more consistent workforce. You're not getting guys injured. So there are things like that come along the way that don't get recorded here. Quality. So again, rework, waste. So just in terms of the stock that the subcontractors need to even just buy to begin with, they know they're going to have less waste if they're building it in their own shop. So there are definitely some items in here that we're not capturing that are part of the outside of this. No.
And that's why I think we are not, we don't have that much research that tells us actually the world is safer now because more people are working in a controlled environment. But I think we are going to. I think intuitively, the difference between working on the 5th floor in a driving rainstorm or having to be on a ladder and working up over your head with not the same kind of lighting, not the same kind of ventilation. I think we're going to be seeing some things that dramatically change things. So I'd like to go to the field now. Let's just take a look at what happens when we've created an environment now where there are fewer change orders coming down the pipe. And we've got modern equipment to help us in the field manage this process. This study done by Atul Kanzod. He's from DPR, but he got his master's at Stanford University and at SciFi. He did a productivity study looking at what do the field people do every day in the field. Now, I think for a lot of folks, they can't afford to do this exhaustive research in their own company. But I think it should make sense if you take a look at the old world and take a look at what this performance metric is telling us. This performance metric on the far right is saying I did not have lean process and I did not have BIM anything, and I studied my superintendent's time resolving problems, resolving issues in the field. Between 100 and 200 minutes a day. Even if that's 120, that's 2 hours a day solving problems. If you look at the BIM implementation on the left, the first 2 columns are both BIM and lean, and BIM and no lean. But those first two results show numbers that are dramatically reduced, less than 50. So from, more like 30 minutes a day. So from 2 hours to 30 minutes, a 75% improvement or reduction of time resolving problems. Now, you're not going to save any money directly because the superintendent's got to be there all day. So, okay, no money. But this is a category where I think that the world is changing, and I'd like to suggest this is in that same category. If we don't have problems that slide into the field, then that effort can be repurposed. They can be focusing on quality and schedule, safety, and other things that we want to achieve that makes us world class. This is a design build company. They've presented at Autodesk University. Their research is indicating that they save 1.7 hours per week per user, or 3.5 to 4.25, depending on whether you're calculating a 40-hour work week or a 50-hour work week. Redo. Into field conflict issues. This is that Cypher study by Atul Kanzod in its original form. Less than 0.2% rework. Less than 2 hours a month spent on field coordination issues by the superintendent. So all you did was prevent problems from sliding into the laps of the field people. But we got to figure out what's the financial impact of this. This study was presented in Istanbul. Turner Construction reporting 37% less labor in the field. On-site labor, 37% less than estimated. And productivity, 42% higher than average. So here you see what sounds like a quite sophisticated way of looking at performance measurement. Not by your average contractor. So I think that this shows where contractors are going to have to go in terms of measuring their productivity and taking a look at the lean and even if it's not in your trade, even if you're outsourcing this is gold. This information is gold. Dramatic difference. So they returned 7% of their project budget returned as savings to the owner. This study was done in the Netherlands. Michael Moran, in his master's thesis, it's a good read, but the research that he's done, looking at 15 projects, it was funded by Skanska to figure out what happens when you put people with digital access via portable handheld computers, handheld devices, tablets, give them access and change the way that they work. That number comes out 16%. So what that's saying is they saved 16% of the time. So the question that we have for you, Andy, is if we make this digital model data available, if we reduce problems sliding into the field, if we equip them with modern technology to communicate back so if they have a question, they get it resolved. If they want to take a picture and send it off to get an answer from design or the other parts of the team. What would be the efficiency that you might expect on your field team?
So the direct number that we've seen on the recently completed project was more like 10%. So it's a half a day for a person during the week. Like you said, the superintendent's going to be there all week already. So what does he do with that 4 hours? It is about safety. It is about keeping the job site organized and neat. It's also, quite honestly, about client delight. We'll go above and beyond what they're expecting because we can. So we've taken care of some of the waste and inefficiency by having all of our information on mobile devices and having the information that we need, and it's the right information right there at our fingertips out on the job site. So what do our guys do with that time they've got left over, quote unquote? They spend it on making the job better by doing more than what was expected.
So 10% is your number in terms of the reduction in wasted time in a way. Right. The reduction of reactive activity in the field.
Yes.
They're 10% more efficient.
Yeah, I think so. And so we haven't reduced staff. I think as we see this continuing, we may look at how we organize staffs differently. So depending on the project, we could look at maybe there's an efficiency on the overall number of people who are on a job site. But that'll be, I think that'll come in a little bit of time. Right now, we're using that time available to really make sure we're just on top of or ahead of everything.
So I have one customer who said, well, I read that thing and they were working 60-hour work weeks. So they got a 16% improvement. And so we talked about the philosophy of let's have them go home earlier. Let's have a better quality of life. And you want to put a number on that? Well, I can't really, I don't know if you can. They just have a better life.
That's a great comment, and that's absolutely true. From our field guys, superintendents, assistant supers, project engineers, I can tell you for a fact. I mean, a lot of good friends that are working on the field, and their quality of life is improved by doing this. And it's something that doesn't fit in a spreadsheet, but I can tell you we've got happier guys doing work every day.
So let's just make sure that everybody in this room and everybody who gets to hear this, return on investment may sound like we're talking about just money. But there are a lot of things I think that are going to improve besides productivity and its financial impact. I'm really hoping that we save some lives, and I'm really hoping that we improve lives. So I just take a minute to mention. So 10%, what does that mean? 10% of the staffing costs are either going to be saved, but 10% of your staffing would be how much money? To either give back to them or reallocate.
Right. So I think for this, I'm not sure that we say that we're actually going to save. Maybe we're going to save some money, or maybe that time was going to be repurposed. I think there's some savings there.
Okay.
Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe if we're looking at the rate that we were burning through GCs before, it could be $250,000 around in that neighborhood somewhere. Even if you're repurposing some of that time, I think there's still some real dollar savings in there.
So I think what we're going to see over the next few years, as more and more companies do that to make this transformation, is there will be conscious decisions that come from executives. I've got a more efficient team. I'm going to take more work and try to beat the competitors. I'm going to try to improve our employees' lives. I'm going to repurpose the effort that used to be spent running around resolving problems or running back and forth to the trailer to get answers. We're just going to see some decisions that have to be made by company cultures to figure out what am I going to do with this savings. Oops, wrong direction. Okay. Operations and maintenance. You can see there's a bunch of things that we wish we had time to deal with, but let's take the operations and maintenance efficiencies, and let's just acknowledge that I've been collecting data, performance metrics for 7 years, and if I have a hole, this is it. And of course it's because BIM isn't that old, and we don't have that many people that have had 10 years of managing a building and enjoying savings. If we did, even if they had 3 years, I'd be happy. But then the question is, are they measuring the savings? If they are measuring the savings, are they publishing that they are saving? So the same thing happened in construction when we wanted construction data, and if you were doing it, you might be wanting to keep a secret. But this is a place where we are just barely beginning to get data coming in. We have academics talking about it. One of the problems we've got about the quality of this data coming in is that it gets mixed up. So they take the the model into their operations, and in order to harvest that, they take the data out into their facility management database, asset management database, and the return on investment is from the performance of this big data working in this environment now that has two engines. It's the harvesting engine and the source data, and what is the value of the visualization of this whole thing, and what is the cost. So there's one I like the best. I'll tell you what it is when we get there. Just for what it's worth, this is where the UK government expects the biggest savings. So they talk about saving 5% during design and construction by investing 1 and getting 5 net, but they're actually shooting for a 20% savings overall, and they believe that the largest prize of all the things, now of course we talked about the contractor thinking it's prefabrication. I grew up with a lot of change orders in my old world, and I think change orders are the big money. And so this is the UK government saying the most money we're going to save is actually during operations meetings. You may have heard this speaker, Brigitte Foster. She's now she's on her own now, but she produced this analysis at the Department of Energy, Sandia National Labs, and she projected a $2.5 million a year savings because her research indicated that in order to do a work order, you got to have 2 hours research to find all the data that you need, and so then you go do the work. But you can have this basically at your fingertips. So saving 2 hours per work order times 24,000 work orders a year on the campus in Albuquerque. Another study, and this has got that net present value, so it's the reason why I like this, is going back to San Diego and looking at the net present value of the operational efficiency. A $30 million project, but a 50-year design life. So this may be a university thing, yeah, it's a classroom building. So 50 years is a long time, and you may or may not want to use net present value calculations. But if you look at the far right-hand side in the operations and maintenance phase, $3.4 million in net present value on a $30 million classroom building. 14% overall when we look at the overall cost savings. So this is the one that I like the best in terms of its analysis, its thoroughness. It says, look, if you're going to harvest benefits in the operation and maintenance phase, you got to invest in some people. You got to get some training going on them. You have to set up you have to equip people up front. So they talk about, and this is Paul Teicholz. I think this is his baby. You may know his brother Eric, but quite an amazing family. And the two folks that they presented with at IFMA. But so they've got the cost in the of setup in the operations and maintenance phase. They've got the annual cost to maintain the integrity of the data calculated in. They've got the savings that come from, you don't have to do the data entry when you shove this pile of paper or two-dimensional stuff over onto the operations. And this was based on a 400,000 square foot office building, so not crazy different from what you got. So you can see savings and faster access to work. Here's that work order. work. 1,600 work orders a year, $50 an hour, $40,000 a year of annual savings. Annual savings on utilities. So this is another big thing that is hard to get your everybody to kind of agree on how to report savings out. So 28,000 a year on better performance. Well, this means that you're doing a better job managing your equipment, and it's doing a better job performing for you. So when you calculate the annual savings, the upfront savings of 41,000 when you first take that data over, but you spend 100,000 of initial cost to set up that operations and maintenance folks. The net, in terms of net present value, turns out to be 9 cents a square foot. Long story to define what, in the final analysis, is a very, very powerful number. 9.4 cents a square foot annual savings. Now we're going to go to cost of BIM next. Your customer that's building this project is thinking in terms of how many years of performance. If we say we're going to save you money every month, every year, how many years do you want to calculate that window?
Sure. Well, so the developer on the project that we're referencing probably you're looking at a 20 or 25 year time frame. We just the project we just delivered, again, we have the model tied together with the equipment database, tied together with barcodes on pieces of equipment. On the FM side of this, it was huge for these guys to be able to access this stuff. I mean, 9 cents is a great target, and I can tell, having talked with facilities guys, the guys with the wrenches in their hand that are going to be out there in the field, this is a really, really valuable deliverable for us to provide. Not hard to be able to work with and use. The guys that we were working with at this particular facility were pretty sophisticated, but we've delivered this on other office buildings, and quite honestly for some public work at some higher ed institutions as well, where the facilities guys, you know, they're not the high-tech guys that you might get in Boston or Cambridge, but they can use these tools, and it's really valuable stuff for them. Just at the basic level, being able to take some of the information that we've given them and have the information they need, like an operations manual, sitting on an iPad where they can get to it right away. Client delight.
So, if we take 20 years, and we say that we're saving 9 cents a square foot, and you have 500,000 square feet, what's that come out to savings per year? Is that 45,000 a year? Now if you multiply that times 20, we get $900,000 with all of those 20 years added up. So we'll put that in, 900,000 in terms of savings over 20 years. Now I'll acknowledge that some of the other research that I've got is coming up with much larger numbers than this 9 cents. But I think that if I'm coaching a lot of construction companies and their customers as they think about this, you don't need to take the higher number. The numbers are so high to begin with. Even if you take the low end, if you're offered a range from the research and you take the lowest number on all of it, you'll come up with such dramatic savings that people are going to wonder if you are exaggerating. Okay, so we've gotten some big fat numbers so far. Can I can I see the numbers that we got? So we got RFI reduction of $1 million, 1,000 times 1,000. We got fewer preventable change orders, going from 4% of the total budget and reducing that by half, 5 million. Faster schedule in terms of general conditions, 750,000, 3 months. More confidence in the geometry, leading to more prefabrication, leading to work that could be brought in from the field to the shop, where it's safer, it's better life, quality of life, but we're going to gain some dramatic efficiencies. We have 4 million there. 270,000 in terms of field efficiencies, and 900,000 in the value of BIM during the operations and maintenance. We have one more number, and that is, what's the value of this project if we deliver it to the owner? It doesn't go in your pocket as a contractor, but it delights the owner and it's real money. So we're going to turn this thing over 3 months early, is that right? So we wish we had your owner in the room. And it makes for a better workshop when you get an owner in the room that says, yeah, I can tell you what the value of that is. This is a developer that can collect rent of maybe $50, $50 a square foot is per year. Go ahead.
Right.
Tell us what your calculations are here.
Well, no, so that's the math. If you're looking at 3 months earlier and it's $50 a foot, and maybe you're going to take away $10 a square foot for operating costs, right? So you're not going to see all that 50. Right, so 3 months times that square footage is $5 million of additional revenue that they can recoup, or that they will see because they've been able to move somebody in earlier and get 3 more months of rent. Honestly, there was a lot of great stuff that we found out from this previous project, but that was the icing on the cake right there.
So your customer's happy, bringing you back for another project. If we can turn this project over 3 months earlier than we used to be able to, the value of that is 5 million. There will be operating costs, but you took those out.
Right.
So the difference is 5 million. So here's a thought that my lead customers often ask a question to me. Hey Ken, that 3 months isn't any good to my customer if they can't plan on it. And so this is why predictability is so key. You've got to be confident that you're going to deliver 3 months earlier. And so some of this BIM value is the ability, relies on your confidence level. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really keen on encouraging customers around the world to measure your performance. Just get really down on what how predictable you can be. How can you improve predictability? Well, let's take a look at the cost of BIM. We've got all these numbers adding up, and I think we're in take your digital version there. What do we got? I think we're in the we're in around 17 million of benefits, all in. But we haven't figured out the cost of them. The 17 million on 250, it's a big project. 250 million dollar project. What's the cost of them? If you take a look at all the research that was referenced in the Canadian study, you keep coming up again and again with half of 1%. So 1% of 250 million would be 2.5 million, and that's what the UK is coming up with. 1% costs you 1% to do BIM. This other study is coming up with a half, and I say that's very compatible, because every BIM initiative, like when you studied and you calculated half of 1%, what were you really buying? What level of BIM implementation? What level of detail? How many trades were represented in the model? Did you really do all-in BIM? Did you plan on harvesting? Did you educate the owner? So I think 0.5% is a little bit low when I read all the studies. And you can up to 2% can be spent. So that would mean 5 million invested to get the 17 million back. That certainly is the highest I've ever seen. What I usually encourage folks to do is don't depart from 1% too far in either direction. And Andy, I think we talked about 1%, 2.5 million, all in. That means investing in all your sub-trades that are going to be involved, all the field folks, all our hardware, software training, time out of production in order to get the skills, engineers, designers, and then operational folks. That would be 1% would be 2.5 million. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think that 1% comes in pretty close to where we were on this last project, and so I actually think what we're going to do on this next one coming up is we're going to target a little lower than that. If we're working with the same team or about the same team, and everybody's already done this, and we all know where it's going to go. Again, there's less uncertainty about how it's going to go. We know we're going to do well. So I think the cost of BIM in this case will be under 1%, just because we know each other and we've done this before. So we've learned. So we're up the learning curve a little bit further. But I think 1% is I think you're right. That's a pretty fair bar to be set, and you're somewhere around there either. What?
So you're gaining efficiencies each year, and a lot of the same folks will be back on this project. Some new players, you're gaining efficiency. So what I suggest to most of my customers that explain to me, oh well, this is going to be a very expensive project because we're going to have to build all this modeling content for this project, and we're going to have to do all this training for this project. And I say, okay, I don't suggest that you kind of, in your calculations, load up your first project and call it a loser, or because it's funding all of this training and content that's going to be enjoyed by the second project, because your second project is going to look like superstars, and the first project looks like it didn't make a profit. So what I see among the more elegant approaches is, let's make an investment, in our calculations, let's charge that upfront cost, so let's spread those costs out over time, but do a very serious calculation in terms of what things cost. So in our calculations then, we have 1%, which is 2.5 million. When we add up all the benefits, they come out to be 17 million. Now the question is, who enjoys those benefits? Because we're going to ask the question, who pays the $2.5 million? So my coaching, which only goes so far, says, why don't you look at who benefits, and if you're enjoying 25% of the benefits, why don't you fund 25% of the costs? You can imagine that this contract language is very, very sensitive, and the other thing is, I'll have a lot of customers that will say, my owner is going to get 65% of the benefits, but isn't aware of it. And so they're not going to fund the BIM initiative. Do they allocate extra money, or you build that all in, just like you used to build in general conditions?
Well, in this case, the owner was up front with the entire team ahead of time, so they were telling us that this is the way they wanted us to work. So it was everything was on the table in this case.
So there was a BIM implementation line item in the budget.
Correct.
Well, to me, that's an educated owner making a good decision. Let's take a look at how much the owner is the beneficiary on this project, and I'm going to ask if I can. Actually, you need this. No, let's not go over these each individual. Andy and I have gone through that last week, and poor guy had to put up with me over and over again. The $1 million that we're going to save in terms of RFIs, that was really all the money that we spent when we followed the workflow of going out and getting a problem solved and bringing it back. That's going to be spread between...
Everybody has a piece of that. Right? I mean, the design team does, they've got it's RFIs and they don't have to answer. The CM has a piece of that. They're going to see some savings because it's some work that they don't have to do. So yeah, the design and construction team primarily are the people who are going to benefit from that.
So that's split. Design team gets the biggest chunk, and then the CM and the sub-trades get about 30% apiece.
Right.
40% to the design team. The change orders, the contingency is funded by the owner. The owner has a contingency, but the construction company also has a contingency for so if we save if we save $5 million in preventable change orders, we split that money up. We think about the owner getting the biggest pie. That's how much?
3.3 million out of 5.
So 66% of the benefits of change orders go to the owner, but everybody else is more efficient.
Right.
Compared to the old days, where those change orders caused a lot of staffing challenges and time and acceleration challenges. $1 million to the sub-trades and $500,000 to the general, to your team, and $200,000 to the design team.
Right. Yeah, I think that's how it shakes out.
Now we have the general condition savings of $750,000 is split between those folks that are spending money just to be there. All their time variable costs are just paying out every month. So that number is split how?
I think we split it equally between the CM and the subcontractors.
The sub-trades are suffering with the same sort of time variable costs and their own staffing and rental, and the general contractor has the so that 750 is split 50-50. The prefabrication. Now that you move work from the field into the shop and enjoy this efficiency, you have $2 million in savings. Is that correct? Is that 2 million? 4?
We're at 4.
4 million.
Right.
And so who enjoys that 4 million in efficiency?
So there's an overall savings that I think the owner enjoys some overall savings, which is probably 50% of that, so 2 million. And then the subs are the ones that are really getting the efficiency out of their shop. And so they get the other half of that is their savings, 2 million.
So I think this is probably one of those moving targets. If everybody else is putting, if nobody is competing with me in a given geography, and I figure out how to way to save 4 million bucks, I'll put it in my pocket. Maybe I may, out of the goodness of my heart, let the owner have some. But as everybody in these competitive environments is pursuing this excellence, at the financial benefits and the other benefits of moving into the shop, it's a moving target. We just have to figure out a way to be better than anybody else if we're going to continue to win work and do it profitably. So that money gets split between the owner and the sub-trades. In a sense, half of it goes to being competitive and half of it goes to my profit line. The field efficiencies and safety, that gets spread out.
That's really specifically, I think, CM staff, so construction managers. Our field staff is going to be, if we're more efficient, we're going to be saving, that's the money that we save, right? I think we said that was a little north of 250,000.
And the owner is the big winner in terms of the efficiencies that come from operations and maintenance and the early occupancy.
Right.
So the owner gets what percentage? Sorry.
That's all right.
I can pull that up for you. Oh, yes, please.
So the 25 of the total number, right? So the owner's getting about 77% of the savings.
Wow.
Not bad.
Wow. So here's a question. How are we doing in terms of time? We're gonna another 5 minutes?
Sorry, just give me a second to advance the slides.
Yeah. So the owner is getting 77% of the benefits. And you know what's interesting is, you know what the owner was saying in Melbourne, Australia? The memorable quote is, "I'm tired of paying for rework." So the owner is getting 77% of 17 million in savings. And this owner is saying, I want BIM. I'm going to have BIM. You want to work on my project, you will be doing BIM. And the UK is saying you will be doing BIM. And a lot of other agencies around the world, Singapore, Australia, they're all starting to mandate BIM.
Right. So, and to that point, Ken, so one of the questions that got asked earlier is, how can we convince people inside our company to do BIM? We had that conversation for a while, but once we had enough owners that just were telling us, hey, if you want to be competitive, if you want to work with us, you have to, that conversation went away, because it became part of the environment that we're in. We have to be able to do it to be able to compete for work.
So some of my coaching around the world sounds like the mandates are coming. So you have two choices. You can be proactive or reactive. The reactive company says, oh, they mandate BIM, I'll do BIM. The proactive company says, I wonder if there's any profit for me. I wonder if my quality can go up. I wonder if my safety program will be more effective. I wonder if I can win work by educating owners that they're going to save this 77%. I wonder if, and so this proactive decision is the message that I'm telling customers all over the world. And I really believe it's true. I think it's a very bad decision to wait.